So this is our fourth mentoring conversation, and we've had some amazing speakers. We launched this series on leadership development. We moved to networking, and then in April we did career development with the Power of Why, and now we're talking about my favorite topic, mentoring. So it's a real honor to be introducing Doug Lawrence to you today. He's the mentor of mentors, and he's coming to us, as Christy mentioned, from Saskatchewan, Canada. So thank you so much for coming out to Toronto to do this for us today. It's really great to see you again in person. So I've been working with Doug for about a year, and one of my fondest memories of working with Doug was we were on this Twitter party together. Has anybody been on a Twitter party? No. Okay, so here's what it's about. So basically, Doug and I were in the lobby of a hotel, and we were dressed up in our suits, and we were sitting down, and we had each of us had a laptop. And we were tweeting and retweeting and tweeting some more, and the hour just like flew by. But now, today, we get to do something like that, but actually in person, with everyone here in the room and then everybody around the world. So it's really cool that we're able to do that today. So Doug is passionate about mentoring, and he's
just a little bit.
You'll see it. It's coming out just a little bit. And he's category. So congratulations on that. Doug joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police very early in his career and spent 25 years of providing policing services in a variety of geographic locations. It was during that time that Doug began to hone his leadership and mentoring skills. A large percentage of the communities that Doug worked were small, which required a unique ability to trust relationships and communicate effectively. After doing extensive market research, Doug realized that there was a need for mentors to be trained. Doug worked with certified subject matter experts out of the United States to become accredited and develop the international certification for mentoring. As you will soon see, and you've probably seen already, Doug's passion is contagious. He is committed to helping organizations and people be successful and has dedicated his life to the coaching and mentoring of others. Please welcome Doug Lawrence.
Good morning, everyone. To those of you here in the room, I can already feel the passion that you share for mentoring. So it's not going to be hard for me to take it to the next level. And for you folks online, God bless you for joining us today. And even through that camera, I can feel the energy that you two share. So we're going to go on an interesting journey today. So I thought I'd throw this up for you just so we all know why we're here, and thanks to Celestica and to Measure City for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and if I'm in your way, just holler at me and I'll get out of your way. This is just a great opportunity. Any chance we get to share the story about the gift of mentoring is such a powerful, powerful story to tell. And I hope that by the end of today that you take away from here some really great tools that's going to help move you from being a mentor to an effective mentor. Let's begin that journey. So one of the things that I always like to do is for us to be more as an effective mentor is to understand what's the business value. And so what are the challenges that organizations are facing today? And it may or may not be the organization that you're in, but these are ones that we're seeing on a global perspective. We're looking at talent shortages, aging workforce, lack of succession planning, and heaven forbid we would want to do succession development. A lack of succession development. There's actually a lack of leadership talent out there, and I'll come back to that in just a minute. Mobile workforce, the average Gen Y will change jobs depending on what site you want to go to, probably 20 times. That's good. Traffic control, that's good. I like that. Will change jobs about 20 times over the course of their career. And we're actually now starting to see that that's filtering into other generations, that they're saying, maybe those folks, maybe they actually got it right. Maybe if I'm not happy, I need to look at someplace else to continue my career path, right? And then finally, the favorite topic, the disengaged employee, or as I think it was Tara and I, or I can't remember who I was having the conversation about, was the idea of actually becoming disengaged from your family because work has consumed who we are as a person. So when I look at mentoring, I can plug mentoring into each and every one of those. Talent shortages. Why do you have a talent shortage? Maybe it's your culture. And mentoring can help us alleviate that problem. And we'll talk about how effective mentoring fits into all of this. Aging workforce. Gosh, heaven forbid that we should allow all those baby boomers, such as myself, to leave our organization. Why don't we train them as mentors and bring them back to help facilitate that knowledge transfer piece? Huge idea. Lack of succession planning. 67% of the organizations worldwide today do not have succession planning. Great place to plug mentoring in. And more importantly, on the succession development side. Because typically what we see happen is we create a succession plan and we say, we've done our duty. And then a year comes up and we haul it off the shelf, blow the dust off of it, and look to see, have the names changed? No, good, we're good for another year. No, you're not. You haven't done anything to develop those successors. And mentoring is a great place to do that. We can do the knowledge transfer piece, but we can also work on those soft skills, which ties us into the next one, the leadership talent, the lack of leadership talent. How many of us actually have mentoring built into our leadership development program? It's huge. Great opportunity for us to be able to help facilitate the growth of our future leaders of tomorrow. We take a look at the mobile workforce. The average Gen Y, like I said, will change jobs 20 times over the course of their career. How do you keep them? You build a mentoring culture within your organization, one that is filled with effective mentoring. Because of that, to leave, they're going to want to stay in your workplace. That's the gift of mentoring. That's how powerful the tool is. That you're here because you obviously have a passion for mentoring. Just imagine the power that you now have from the gift of mentoring. It's huge. I'm just a little passionate, just a touch. Disengaged employees, all kinds of research out there, but if we can create a culture that is focused on a learning and development culture, we can re-engage those disengaged employees through the power of mentoring. And I want you to just think about that for just a minute. Think about the different ways from your own personal experiences that you've had with mentoring. Think about the ways that you could re-engage employees in the organization, those disengaged ones. It's a powerful way to do that. Creating a culture of engagement, empowerment, and accountability. And it's all achievable through the gift of mentoring. Who benefits? You know, we're going to go on this journey. We're going to go from mentoring to effective mentoring, but why? Why would we want to do that? And it's really important that we understand who's actually going to benefit from this. You know, we take a look at, why would we want to, what's in it for me? That's always what we always seem to ask, right? What's in it for me? Well, mentoring by itself, just by itself, can change who we are as a person. We always look at it, or I certainly do in a lot of the work that I do, is dealing with a lot of folks that are suffering from self-esteem, self-confidence issues. Mentoring's a great place. Even if you get into that wild and wacky idea that I did the one time with a young lady, she was referred to me, and actually it started off as a job coaching exercise. And she said, you know, I need to get out of where I am. Toxic workplace. And I went, sure, we'll have a conversation. Send me your resume. Oh my God. I have never picked anything up that was so full of negative energy as I did when I picked up her resume. And we think that that's kind of a funny thing. Like, how can you get negative energy off a piece of paper? But it was the words that were written. And you could just sense that she didn't believe in who she was. And it was no wonder she was unable to find a job. So we went on a journey. We went on a journey together. And part of that was the realization that she was suffering from self-esteem, self-confidence issues. Being in a negative work environment, the toxicity had beaten her down, that she didn't really know who she was, and any work that she did in fact do was not good enough, was never good enough. And so then there was performance-related issues, which then ties us to the professional growth part. So we went on this journey together, even to the point, and this is where we get to sort of think outside the box a little bit. It was taking yellow Post-it notes and writing positive affirmations on them and putting them on the mirror in the bathroom in the morning. So the first thing she saw was, I'm a really great person. I do good work. And eventually the transformation came where she moved from being that non-believer, low self-esteem, low self-confidence to somebody that now believed in who she was. And within a very short time period, we redid the resume. It now spoke in positive energy terms, and she had 3 interviews in 5 days. She also did something else that was quite interesting. And I said, how you carry yourself when you walk in a room will determine how people view who you are as a person. Bless you. She went out and she spent a lot of money on a new wardrobe. I still, to this day, stay hidden from her husband. So when he shows up, I go a different direction. But spend a lot of money on a wardrobe. And when she would walk into a room today, we could turn the lights off because she would light the room up because of her positive energy. And that was done through the gift of mentoring. It was done through the gift of mentoring. It's huge. On the professional growth, we've kind of talked about that. You thought you were going to get me to move, didn't you? Professional growth. If you can focus on the personal growth side of things, deal with the self-esteem, deal with the self-confidence, help them think, develop those critical thinking skills. Any of the challenges that you have on the personal growth, the performance-related issues, they're going to go away. Or they're going to be definitely diminished a significant amount. So we always say with effective mentoring, we want to focus first on the personal growth side. Because chances are we're going to be able to make the professional issues, performance-related issues and that, we're going to be able to make them go away. Who are the benefactors? Who's going to win from this, going on this journey? And there's really a couple, right? There's the people. The most important part from my perspective, because this is all about us as the people, that's the most important part. So we're the ones that are going to benefit. And think of it from a broader perspective is, who else in that people realm? If you're practicing effective mentoring and you're having an influence on others, it's not just the people in the workplace. It's the people at home as well. You're going to have an influence because you're now going to have new tools on how to build trusted relationships, build and maintain relationships. So it now becomes a transferable skill that we can take outside of the workplace and use in other areas. Because you know, you take a look at think of all the places that we develop relationships. We develop relationships with our customers, with our clients. We develop relationships with those that we love at home. We develop relationships with those in the workplace. You'll notice I didn't say that we love in the workplace. Okay. But those in the workplace, right? So relationships have become a large part of who we are today. And with these tools, with being able to build a trusted relationship in a very compressed period of time, we're in a position where we can actually influence the lives of others. That's the gift of mentoring. That's effective mentoring. And then who else wins from all of this but the organization that we're in, because we've now created that learning and development environment where we focus on the people. I used to say people are our most valued asset. And I've actually heard a new term where people say, actually, people are our most valued stakeholders. Because they have a large stake, a shareholder in our organization, whether we want to admit it or not. So it's huge that particular way. Okay? Productivity. How many of us take a look and sort of say, gee, I wonder, did I really give 110% today in the workplace? And if we go through the whole effective mentoring, you're going to find that the productivity on a personal level actually starts to increase. There's all kinds of research, all kinds of statistics, and I'm not going to bore you to death with that today, that's out there that talks about the benefits of mentoring. Take a few moments if you're questioning, is this guy smoking whatever? Or is he actually speaking the truth? And you'll find that when you get out there and start to do homework, there's all kinds of benefits from going down the path of mentoring. And then just take it that step further where we take it to the effective mentoring level, right? It's huge. Productivity, organizational, so we've kind of talked about a lot of that already, so let's just continue on. So I want to talk just a little bit about the difference between a mentor and an effective mentor. And there is a difference, trust me. And then we're going to do a little bit of work around definition of an effective mentor and then what are the skills. And this is where you folks get to do some work. And you folks at home that have dialed in, you're not excused from this exercise either, so you get to play in this as well. So let's talk about the difference between a mentor and an effective mentor. God bless all of you if you're mentoring today and you're here because you want to go to the next level. Because there is truly a difference between mentoring and effective mentoring. And typically what we have found, what I've found, has been in my conversations with people, they've said, yeah, I was assigned this guy or this woman to be my mentor, and don't talk to me anymore about this mentoring stuff, because it really is, it sucks, to make it long story short. So just don't talk to me. I'll go, why? Well, you know, here's the thing. They said, what's your problem? And so I would tell them what my problem is, and they'd say, well, this is what you do to fix it. And I'd go, oh, so did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay, well, go away and fix the problem. And I'm thinking, is that the relationship that I signed up for? Is that what this is all about? So an effective mentor is, first off, a couple things. Is that we're going to look at building a trusted relationship. And I want you to think about, can you do that overnight, or does that take work? And then the second part is communicate. How many of us actually communicate effectively? How many of us work for people that sort of struggle with communicating? And I'll give you a good example. I'm working with a young lady in the construction industry, and I get a phone call from her boss who says, I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end. I'm at the point where my next course of action is I'm about to pull the trigger and I'm going to terminate. And I went, oh, no, oh my God, please don't do that. Well, what am I going to do? And I said, let me spend some time with her. I said, tell you what, let me spend 5 sessions with her and we'll see what happens as a result of that. Long story short, as part of that, probably within, I can't remember now whether it was in the first session or the second one, I find out she had a learning disability from an early age. So when you go to give instructions to her, you have to make sure that she understands them. You can't assume, which we all do, that she actually understood what the expectations were. And so because mentoring relationships are of a confidential nature and we don't share what we talk about, I went and had a conversation with her boss, and it was something like this. I need you to help me because I'm just getting a sense here that we have a bit of a communication breakdown and the messages aren't going back and forth as good as they possibly could. So here's what I'd like you to do. And I take her through basically effective communication. And what it is getting her to explain things and then ask some questions to make sure that what she explained was actually being understood. Long story short, she has now become her #1 employee. She has now been given added responsibility because we've upped the ante, and I said she's capable of a whole lot more than what you originally thought. You need to challenge her, because if you don't challenge her, she's going to move on. And so it's a great good news story for effective mentoring. We were able to take a diamond in the rough, polish it just ever so slightly, and it's now a bright, shining diamond that is doing very, very well in that organization. So it's a great example for us. That's sort of the, gives you sort of the, it's going that extra step, and there's a whole number of different variables that takes us from mentoring to effective mentoring. Here's what I want you to do. As we talk about the skills, that's going to build us a definition of what an effective mentor is. So here's what I want you to do, and I want you folks at home to start pumping in some ideas, some what you think are the skills of an effective mentor. I'm going to give you folks a minute or so to write down 2 or 3, and then we're going to have a quick exchange of what you think some of those skills are. So I'll give you just a minute or so to do that, and then we'll kind of go from there. Okay, away you go. And you can talk to the person beside you too, whatever works.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, I'll get you to come back again. I always hate to do that. Just when I get you fired up, I got to pull the plug on you, but I'll give you another chance. Hang on to that passion. What do we got from online?
Yep, we have a couple here. From Huey, we have listening and constructive feedback.
Okay.
Michael Leone, good listener. Lily Yang, questioning and listening skills. Tirapol, no assumptions. Siobhan says, an effective mentor is someone who makes you consider things you hadn't considered before. Explore your options. From Wayne Richings, we have the ability to give and take, the ability to learn from others, the ability to bring out the best in someone. Ability to coach, and some listening skills from David Rubin.
Okay. And you folks here? Anything in addition to those? Yes, sir.
Commitment.
Okay, perfect. Good one.
And good listener, trusted relationship, create a comfort zone, and know your strengths and weaknesses.
The comfort zone. Really, really important. So here's a great difference between mentoring and effective mentoring. When you get into that effective mentoring space, you're actually capable of creating a safe environment. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So thank you for that. And the commitment one is huge as well, because I've been in relationships where it's been one way. And mentoring is a two-way relationship. So good job. Yes?
We felt confidence.
Yes.
If you're confident in your ability, then the mentee would feel in trusted hands.
Take the time, real good one, confidence, take the time to go through a self-reflection exercise and do it fairly regularly. Do a self-reflection exercise. And I can, I'll provide sort of a series of questions if you're interested in going down that path. I can provide to you folks and you can share them out. But really important to reflect upon where you've been and where you are today and who influenced that journey. Because part of being an effective mentor is my core is solid. I know who I am, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I'm able to communicate those effectively. And I'll talk some more about that. Sorry.
One I have is that the mentor should generally care about the mentee. Should feel that they are actually invested in this. And if you are a mentor, if you really aren't invested in that person, you shouldn't do it. It has to come from a genuine place.
Comes from here, right?
Yeah.
It's genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah, we have a lot of that mirroring online as well. Eduardo Lopez says really caring about the mentee, mirroring their strengths, ability to grow new insights, having no assumptions, and ability to ask probing questions.
Probing questions is really a good one, and that is the foundation piece I would suggest to effective mentoring, and it's what we call the Socratic method. And so the Socratic method is based on Socrates, a Greek philosopher. We don't need the history lesson in right now. We'll maybe do that another day. We'll go through that process. But the whole Socrates exercise of asking questions rather than telling, it's so easy for us, even as leaders in an organization, to just tell somebody how to fix the problem. It reminds me, I was working with a guy. I went out to meet with him because we were having some discussion about whether he's going to bring me into his organization or not. And there he is. He's sitting at his computer, and he's got the telephone over here and the computer monitoring this. And over here on the side is a little table and chairs. And when I come in, he gets up and comes over and sits down with me, and we have the conversation. We start talking. Someone comes to his door, they knock on the door, and he lifts his head up and he says, yeah, what's the problem? They rattle off something, and he gives them the answer and away they go, and I'm going, oh no. So I said to him, normally if I wasn't here and you were behind your desk, how do you deal with that? And he said, well, they come in and I look up over the tops of my glasses and I look at them and what's the problem? And I give them the answer and away they go. And I said, so how many times a day do they come back with that same problem? They went, quite often. I said, how much of your time does that take up? And he said, well, I don't know, not a lot. I said, tell you what, let's accumulate all of that together, and when they come to your door and say, I got a problem, you invite them in and sit them down at the table, and you start to ask them a series of questions to get them to critically think their way through and solve the problem on their own. Amen. I never thought of that. And I said, they'll only come to you the once, because you will have helped them figure out, we don't need the boss to answer or figure out the problems. We can do this on our own. And he went, sign me up, I want to learn more. And it was a great experience for him. So, we need to think about that. What else have you got? Anything else?
Honest feedback, no assumptions, empathy.
Okay. Good. Sorry.
I also had being approachable, which kind of ties into the example you just gave, looking over your glasses and you're giving that standoffish kind of behavior. It doesn't invite the person to ask a question or feel comfortable with the question.
Very good. And think of it from this perspective. I want to just build on what you had just said. Think of it when you're setting up your environment to have a mentoring discussion. Is it a good idea to put a table between you so you've got that barrier in between you? Or do you want to have it set up so you're sitting in close proximity, relatively, whatever your comfort level is, but you have nothing in between? So you open up the communication channels and you don't have the table in between you. Even as a leader in the leadership position I was in, I always got up from behind my desk and came out and sat at a table with my employees if I was having a conversation with them, whether it be social or work-related. Didn't matter. I wanted to get rid of that barrier, so I opened up that line of communication. We need to do that very same sort of thing as an effective mentor.
We have a question here.
Okay.
What if we want to mentor the one that does not want to be mentored? How should we go about it?
Okay. Part of that can be attributed to building the trusted relationship. Part of that is actually, if we can't build a trusted relationship, they may not want to go on the journey with us. And so when I talk about the different phases of a relationship building exercise, and there's 3 of them. I'm probably jumping ahead, but we'll go there and I'll fill the gaps in. There is the trusted phase, the learning and development phase, and the maintenance phase. And with the trusted phase, that may take us 4 or 5 sessions to be able to build that trust. And a large part of that is that in that trusting phase, and you may want to grab both sides of your seat when I tell you this, you may have to give up some very personal information in order to build that trust. My father's an alcoholic. Now when I said that, what was the first thought that went into your mind? That seems personal to me. Why is he sharing that? Because I want to build a relationship with each and every one of you here in the room and with each and every one of you that have dialed in today. I want that personal relationship with each and every one of you. And to do that, to gain your trust, I have to share something that's very personal to me. And God bless him, and through the good graces of a great woman, he's not had a drink now in probably 7 years. But I had to share that. And that's part of that. So you will get times, sadly as it may seem, we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. You will get that odd 1 or 2 that don't want any part of the mentoring piece. But typically, if that happens, where you get that sense, I can usually link it back to I was not successful in building that trusted relationship. I wasn't successful in building the trust, and I wasn't successful in getting them to appreciate how they're going to gain knowledge and how they're going to be able to critically think their way through a number of different situations. A little tidbit for you. Inside each and every one of us in this room and through our audience online, inside each and every one of us are all the answers to all the questions that are out there. Our job as effective mentors is to unlock that door and guide our mentees to those answers. Not give them the answers, guide them to the answers. So asking a series of questions to get them to that point. Are we good? We're good? Here we go. Number 1, trusted relationship, first and foremost at the top of the list of skills that you need to have in place. How do we do this? We've kind of talked about that already, right? So And it is a transferable skill. Just think of when you leave here and go home tonight, have you built a trusted relationship? And you don't have to answer that right now, so just say it. But it is a transferable skill. Communication, effective communication. How many of us think of it from the act of listening? We may be listening, but do we actually hear what's being said? And are we really full of anxiety? We just want to dive into the conversation because our thoughts are more important, and if I don't say them right now, I'm going to forget them. So I'm just going to cut you off and spill my story. Not effective communication. And a large part of mentoring, effective mentoring, is sometimes you don't get to talk. I have one of my mentees, we're in a learning and development phase of the relationship. We've been in that phase now for probably 3 to 5 years, and I know when it's time for Doug to shut up. And I know when it's time for Doug to listen. And listening can be 45 to 50 minutes, and it'll be thank you for listening, click, goodbye. And that's all it took to take us from mentoring to effective mentoring, is actually knowing when it's time to listen versus time to talk. They will tell you. They will give you the signals that they're looking for guidance. Okay? Body language will tell the story in a lot of cases. And it's quite interesting. I've gone through and done a number of one-hour interviews, culture assessment type stuff. But the story behind all of that is that in a very short time period, when they come in and sit down and you get them where they slouch back in the chairs, or they got the crossed arms over, or they put their feet up on the table that you're interviewing them at, you pretty much know that we got a little bit of an uphill climb. We're going to have to deal with that. We'll have to readjust the behaviors just a little bit to let's get everybody on the same page. So, really important. The visualization piece. I'm going to take you, to you folks listening in, dialing in, you can do this and no one can see, so you're lucky. Here's what I want you to think about is, number one, visualization is 2 parts. It's breathing and it's mental imagery visualization piece. I always tell people, before you go into a mentoring situation, I want you to visualize how that situation is going to unfold. So relax yourself through the breathing exercise and then visualize. Close your eyes and just visualize sitting across from your mentee and having that conversation. And visualize some of the questions that they may be throwing at you and how you're going to respond to those. It's all part of being prepared. And that's another difference between a mentor and an effective mentor is, do I get myself prepared before I go in to have those conversations? Now, the visualization exercise, or mental imagery, as they call it in the sports area, sports psychology, is such a powerful tool because it's a transferable skill. We can use that in a number of different places. Think of it from, if you're working with your mentee, get them to do that particular exercise as they prepare for a job interview. Visualize the job interview taking place and some potential questions and how you're going to respond. I took a lady that hadn't had a job interview in 18 years and took her through this process of the mental imagery visualization, and she knocked 2 interviews back to back right out of the park and got a new job. She said, I was nervous. I won't use her terminology because it's not appropriate right now for this audience. But she said, that I was really, really nervous, really bad. And she said, when I sat down and it started to go, she said the first interview was an hour and a half in length and it just went right by. The next one she said I went into, same sort of thing. It was like, don't you have any more questions for me? I'm so pumped. Give me some more. And she said, that was it. It was done. She said, thank you so much. And it was that process of getting her to mentally prepare herself through visualizing the interview. And you can do much the same sort of thing. As leaders in your organizations, do you visualize going to a meeting and having positive conversations? A great book for you to take a look at if you want to really go through, puts it in business context. is a book called Miller's Bolt, B-O-L-T, written by an author called Thomas Stirr, S-T-I-R-R. Thomas takes that whole imagery piece and moves it into the business world in quite an easy-to-read concept. It's one for you to take a look at. All right, some additional ones. Obviously, passion, as you can probably tell from me, obviously passion is just a little piece of the pie here for us. Being genuine, humble. Humility is a huge thing. When you're sharing the gift of mentoring, you need to demonstrate humility and being humble. Caring, we've talked about that, great communicator, great listener. It's knowing when I need to listen and when I need to talk. When you go to build a trusted relationship, you may find that in the trusting phase of that relationship, you may work with individuals that for the first 2 or 3 sessions, you talk for 45 or 50 minutes. And you go like, what the heck value did I bring today? And I've had a couple of those. And I persevered. And I'd come back the next session. And we'd sit down and chat, or I'd sit down and chat. It was me talking for 45 to 50 minutes. And then at the end, either him or her saying, well, that was really good. I'd like to meet with you again. I'm thinking, and what value did we get from this? But here's what's taking place. They are actually listening to what you're saying. So if you're running through, oh, gee, I got back from Vancouver on Sunday, and I cleaned out my suitcase, and I threw all my dirty clothes in the washing machine, and then I went to see my granddaughter, and I went here and there. They're relating to each and every single point that you're talking about. That's the value that they're getting from that conversation. And as I found out from a young lady in the construction industry, she said, after we're done our discussion, even though it's you doing most of the talking, I feel so much better. I feel my self-esteem, self-confidence just climbs through the roof, and I'm good for another week. It's like I'm like one of those electric cars. Just plug me in, recharge me, and I'm good for a whole week. That's what the benefit was for her. But we need to know as effective mentors that you're going to come across a time point when you're going to have to do all the talking. And no, there is no script. I get asked that all the time. Somebody said, well, do you have a series of points you think we should cover? And I'll go, no, because then it's not genuine. Thank you. It's not genuine. And so we need to make sure that we've got a whole list of things that we can talk about. And some of them may have to be personal in order to build that trusted relationship. Really important. The Socratic method. Do you ever, when you use the Socratic method, do you ever have to give the answer to the question? Yes. 2 times. First, if you're mentoring people in an emergency room and they roll somebody in and there's blood spurting all over the place, let's not get into saying, so, what do you think we should do? Let's just fix the problem, okay? The second is, if you're working with a mentee that is struggling in coming up with the answers to the questions, give them the answer, but then frame it in the context of a question. Get them to think of what the outcomes are going to be. I'll give you an example. So tell me, if we were to do this, what would the outcomes be? I've given them the answer, and I've now focused their energy and their focus on the outcomes. What would happen if we were to do this? And then if they still struggle and sputter, then say, okay, so what would happen then if we were to take these 2 outcomes? What would happen if we were to try those? And get them to think their way through, critically think. Don't give them the answers. Help them develop those critical thinking skills so that they can solve those problems. Unless, of course, you're in the emergency room and that situation is taking place. That's the only time that you really should give those answers. Any questions from you folks online about that?
Not so far. There was a question earlier about the differences between mentoring and counseling.
And I'll go a step further and coaching. So there is a flavor of counseling per se in what we do in effective mentoring. There is a flavor per se coaching in effective mentoring. Conversely, in counseling, there's probably a flavor of mentoring to some extent, and I definitely know that there is a flavor of mentoring and coaching. Here's my story on that one is that I'm a firm believer that in any organization there's a place for all of those in each of their own disciplines. And I usually typically don't spend a lot of time talking about the counseling. I speak about coaching and mentoring, and what I typically say to people is this, is that in an organization there is a place for both, coaching and mentoring. In an organization, there is a time for a handoff from the mentor to the coach, and from the coach back to the mentor. And organizations that decide to have both have embraced two great techniques that will obviously be to the benefit of their employees. So most folks we sort of agree to disagree on, is there really truly a difference between coaching and mentoring, and there is. Any of the research that you read will definitely say that there is a difference between the two. My philosophy is, let's get away from throwing stones at our glass houses and let's see what we can do to knock that wall down and have the two work very well together, because together they're a great tool to use together. So hopefully that answered the question. It kind of was sort of circumventing a lot of it, and the same sort of applies with the counseling piece. To some extent it is counseling, but we always have to remember is that we're not telling. What we're doing is we're asking questions to guide them to the answer. So if you want to put a counsel label on that, go ahead. I think it's probably not as strong of a counseling role as what it is a mentoring role. Okay. Obviously, the last two are the relationship builder piece and then the trusted part, right? If we can't be somebody that is deemed to be a trusted individual, you're going to really struggle getting past the first phase of the relationship building exercise. Okay? So it's huge. If you leave here today, and you folks at home, when you log off, if you leave here with only a couple things, the first is the trusted relationship is paramount in moving forward, and effective communication are the two key things. And like the last note, it's a transferable skill. So my gift to you is to take that when you leave here and you go home. Those are skills that you can transfer into your personal life, and please do so. All right, the Socratic method, and we've kind of touched on that a little bit already. So Socrates, God bless him, great concept. It's been used a lot over the course of the years, but not as effectively as I would like to have seen it being used. And so we're injecting a little of Doug's passion juice into the Socrates method, and we're going to get it going again. It's a great leadership style, because how many of us have worked for people, I know I certainly have, over the course of my career, where it was so easy to just be told what to do, and nobody would take the time to sit me down and ask me a series of questions to help me think my way through it. That's what creates disengagement. Because I'm not engaged anymore. I wait to be told what to do. And I did, in one organization I was working in, I took the initiative to deal with something and put it into place, and the next thing I know is my boss sends me an email Unfortunately, when he sent me the email to tell me that what I did was not approved, eventually 2 weeks later it ended up being implemented as his idea, but that's another sidebar. But when he sent me the email, it was not as great an experience as I would have liked, because he carbon copied the Queen of England and a number of other high-ranking people that I sort of went like, okay, could you not have just called me up and said, next time, talk to me first before you do this? So I became disengaged. I unplugged. Because I just wait. I become a robot. I'll just wait. You tell me what you want me to do, when you want me to do, and how you want me to do it, and I'm going to deal with it. Not the work environment that we want to be in today. Okay, we've kind of gone through some of that. And we've talked a bit about this. So the 3 stages really are the trusting phase, learning and development phase, maintenance phase. The trusting phase can take you anywhere from when you get really good at effective mentoring, you can build it in the first phase, and the rest of the time, for most of us, it's going to probably take us 4 or 5 times to build that trust. And remember, in this particular situation, this is where we may have to do that uncomfortable thing and share a little bit about who we are as a person. Okay. Then we get into the learning and development phase. And typically, this is typically, what you're going to see is there's a number of phases within the phase. So in the learning and development phase, I may meet with my mentee weekly. And then as we grow, I may move to bi-weekly. And then I may move to once a month. And when I get to that once a month stage, we're going to have a conversation and we're going to say, is it time for us to move into what I call maintenance mode? And that's where we may touch base once every month or once every 6 months, but it's just, how's it going? Do you need for us to get together over a coffee and talk about what's been going on? Or are you okay with things? And if you are, I'll reach out to you again in another 6 months to a year. And then eventually you may end up where at some stage you decide to just end the relationship completely. I haven't had that happen yet. And I've been doing this for a while, and I haven't had anyone say they want to end the relationship, the mentoring relationship. I had to clarify that. Okay. I have to reinforce this. There is no script. So when you go to have the conversation with them, you got to be prepared. You've got to be willing to, you know, I can talk for 45 or 50 minutes usually and fill that whole gap. You wouldn't know that based on today, but I've been able to do that. And you too can do the same sort of thing. Don't get into creating a script. Don't get into saying, here are the topics we're going to talk about. Avoid that if you possibly can. Get comfortable with who you are as a person. Inside each and every one of us, there's a lot of stories to tell. Kind of talked about this as well. And the whole thing is that with effective mentoring, you're actually creating a learning and development environment. In mentoring, it's not quite going to happen. So with effective mentoring, though, you do create a learning and development environment. You do create a workforce of engaged, empowered, and accountable employees. It's huge. And the maintenance phase, I like about the whole idea about jumping ahead of myself is that when I get to some slides, I can go a little bit quicker. And a mutual agreement to suspend the relationship. That's important. Don't take it on yourself as an effective mentor to say, okay, I think we should just end this. No. It's been a partnership to that point. You want to make sure that it stays that way. I always get asked this. So when we go to have these meetings, you know, the whole idea of a meaningful meeting. So what's important? Well, obviously, who's going to drive the agenda? I always like to push it back to the mentee. And if we have to, then I'm going to ask a series of questions to get them to come up with the agenda. But I'd like them to own that, create that accountability. Comes back to what was said earlier. It infuses the commitment level that needs to happen. You need to ensure value. At the end of every mentoring session I have, I ask, what value did we both get from this? Would you like to meet again? And when would you like to do that? So I always make sure we do that. Technology plays a role because a large part of what we do is I do a lot of remote mentoring. So I'm mentoring people in other countries and all over the place. And I can't do that in face-to-face. My bank account and my banker have said, you can't do that. So I obviously, it's a mentoring experience from him, so I just don't do that. And so I have to reach out to find what other tool sets can I use. So even with some of my mentees back home in Regina, I do relationships by text messages. I'm having a meltdown. I need your help. Okay, what's the problem? Well, this, and this. Okay, what would happen if you did this? We kind of do it that way. Because busy lives, nobody really has time to be doing any of that other stuff. You know, so the preferred method obviously is face-to-face, but if it can't be, then so be it. We have to use, you know, Skype, Google Hangout, video conferencing, email, phone, or text. I think this is a good spot here.
We're actually working.
Okay, we're not going to. So I'm going to, I'll go there then, because I can go there a little bit. As Sean mentioned, he and I have been in a bit of we've been in a relationship now for about a year, and we've partnered with Mentor City, obviously, you know, because of why I'm here. And Mentor City is a great tool, a great software solution for mentoring as a whole. And the other value add that's not here, that should be here, is that Sean is passionate as well about mentoring. And to me, that takes his solution to a whole new level of being able to meet the needs, you know, for clients. And like I said, the research is showing typically that 50 pairs or more in mentoring programs, that it's a great idea to have a software solution that's going to be able to help you do that. And so for those of you that are entertaining that, it's a great, you know, great opportunity for you to connect with Sean and go from there. Okay. So sort of in summary is, when you leave here today, I want you to leave here with the idea in mind of sharing the gift of mentoring. It is truly a gift, and especially more so if it's effective mentoring. Because it gives us the chance to help people and organizations be the best that they can be. And trust me, there is no better reward than being able to help an individual and an organization be the best that they can be and create that learning and development environment. And like everything else that we do in life, effective mentoring is all about practice, practice, practice. The more you do, the better you get at it. The more you use the Socratic method, the better you're going to be at using it. Even to having those fireside chats on the couch with your significant other and asking each other a series of questions to guide each other to the answer. If you ever want to watch a real humorous thing, you should watch my wife and I go through that exercise on the couch. Neither one of us wanting to give the other one the answer. Oh. Transferable skills. It's definitely a transferable skill for sure. And you always want to make sure that you seek feedback. And at the very bottom, be genuine and be humble. Because you truly are on a journey of a lifetime. You truly do get to influence and make a difference in someone else's life. And just make sure you're humble. So I always like to say the decision is yours. Embrace the power of mentoring and take your organization to the next level. You're here, so I don't need to preach to the choir. Create an environment where your employees are engaged, empowered, and accountable, and can you afford not to? And for you folks at home, thank you for being so patient. My long-winded dissertation on effective mentoring. Thank you very much for dialing in. And for you folks today, for those of you that have taken the time out of your busy schedule, thank you as well for being here. And God bless you all.
we should look at a couple of questions maybe from the audience, and then so we can listen in,
Okay.
and then we'll break up into.
Perfect. Okay. Any questions?
So do you advocate for like, formal mentoring programs or informal mentoring where you just go out and find a person you'd like to talk to, sort of on a personal basis rather than on an organizational basis?
So I guess I'll here we go, right? I'll have to come back to you with the question. And are you looking at it from the aspect of formal mentoring programs and informal within an organization, or are you looking outside of that?
Within the organization.
So here's, in an ideal world, you'll have both. You'll create a mentoring culture where you have formal relationships that are part of a structured program, but you'll also have informal relationships as well. So you may be assigned a official mentor, but part of the culture is that when you come to work, because you're in this mentoring, learning, and development environment, part of what it will entail is that you'll know that the person sitting beside you is going to share something that's going to help you, and conversely, you're going to, maybe the person behind you is somebody that you're going to help them grow personally and professionally as well. The desired state is a combination of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, and is there at any point where you say you really should do this formally rather than informally?
It depends on what it is that you're looking for. If effective mentoring is in place in both situations, I think that you'll find that you'll probably benefit just as much from whether it's formal or informal. The big thing is 4 main reasons mentoring programs fail: lack of corporate support, lack of structure, lack of training, and the culture won't support mentoring. That's the 4 main reasons. And I think Sean has probably shared that. I've seen it in some of the stuff he's put out as well. So those are the 4 main reasons why. So with an informal mentoring process, there's really no structure per se, right? So that's where you need to have, if you do have an organization that has a formal program and you infuse that with informal mentoring as well, then you've got the best of both. Okay. Did that help?
Yeah.
Kind of? Kind of. It's a hard one to answer because you want to have some structure around it. Because if it's just informal, you may not get the desired results. Because how am I going to be able to, if I'm not able to sort of track the relationships that are taking place in an organization, then I'm going to have a difficult time coming back and saying, what were the benefits, that we accomplished as a result of that? Because I would take you back to some of the first slides where I talked about here's some of the business challenges, and so which one of those through that informal mentoring process are we trying to solve? And how are we going to be able to sort of justify, if you want to use that this has worked well? Because what we typically see is that in a lot of cases, the percentage rate for success in mentoring programs, if they don't address those 4 points, is not very high. Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
What recommendations do you have to stay on top of your game as a mentor?
Practice, practice, practice. Yeah. The more you do, the more comfortable you get at it, and the more you use that Socratic method, the more comfortable you're going to get at it. I see in a lot of situations when we talk and work with people that a large part of that Socratic method is a pretty scary thing, because I find that people will say, well, I'll get frustrated because they don't seem to be getting it, so it's easier for me to just tell them. And what we say is that you got to work at it. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you want to take and move your skill sets from mentoring to effective mentoring, then we need to do that by practice, practice, practice. That's huge. Good question. Anyone else?
Talked a little bit about the success of mentoring relationships. How do you measure success on an organizational level?
On an organizational level, I would draw it back to what was the problem we tried to solve. So is it recruitment and retention? And before we started, where were we, and now where are we? So that's why I strongly suggest if we can tie it back to a business problem, then it's going to help us do the justification around that. There's Cripple Creek Associates has a paper they put out called Benefits of Mentoring, and in there they list a number of things. And I think, don't quote me, but I think at the back of the document is actually an ROI formula for calculating return on investment. Grab my card and I can email it to you. So, okay. Online.
Yep, we have a question here from Raymond Pentea. How do you see technology impacting effective mentoring? Agreeing that relationship making, confidence gaining, empathy, body language, etc. are important conditions for effective mentoring. How effective and impersonal coaching and mentoring can be?
So the technology piece, I think that technology-wise, that if we can sort of simulate the face-to-face, so using Skype and Google Hangouts and that's good. Is it as good as sitting face-to-face? Probably not. And I think I use whatever tools I possibly can, if it's a phone call, a text message, email, or whatever, to be able to meet the needs. But do I feel like I brought value? Not always. I don't always feel that I bring value in those situations. Because even I was mentoring a young lady down in the U.S., and when we would use Skype, and I could actually see the body language, I knew when it was time to end the chat. The attention span it was gone. So we were both wasting our time. If that was done through email or through text messaging or even a phone call, I mean, a phone call, at least I can hear the voice. I'm able to figure out through the voice that I've just lost them. But other than that, I would suggest if you have to use technology, then Google Hangout or Skype are, at least then you can sort of get some face-to-face, not face-to-face in the true sense, but some sort of visual that's going to help you in that case. Hopefully that answered the question.
And one more was from Linda. Do you have a specific number of mentoring sessions that you usually start with?
If 5 is my magic number. If I can't build a trusted relationship in 5 sessions, it's probably not going to happen. And so typically I go with 5. Yeah.
So we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
For those of us in the room. Thank you for joining us online. For everyone, we've included an exercise in the meeting invitation that you can do partnering with a colleague to practice some of the effective mentoring skills that you've learned today. And for those of us in the room, I think we're going to go through a bit of a breakout exercise in the next 10 minutes just to practice out some of those skills, and then we can find out what people in the room learned from that experience, and then we'll close off. Okay.